These days, it can be hard to trust the media. What's true, what's fake, and who is behind the message? I'm a freelance journalist and videographer who has spent years studying the media. Now I'm taking a look at what local, regional, and national news stories mean to us here in North Central Washington. I'm Dominick Bonny, and this is Common Sense. Hello and welcome to Common Sense. I'm Dominick Bonny, and in this episode, we're going to head down to Rotary Park in Wenatchee and speak with a local man, born and raised right here in the Wenatchee Valley, who is currently in active addiction. He's an intravenous drug user who says he has overdosed 38 times so far. The last 3 times he OD'd, it was Narcan that helped save his life. But before we get to that interview, I'd like to talk a little bit about one of my personal heroes, Ida B. Wells Barnett, who was a prominent journalist, activist, and researcher in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. In her day, she was arguably the most famous black woman in America, and in her lifetime, she battled sexism, racism, and violence. As a skilled writer, Wells Barnett used her skills as a journalist to shed light on the conditions of African Americans throughout the South. Now, I could spend a whole episode on Ida B. Wells Barnett, but that wouldn't be enough to give this great American the recognition she's due. I think she deserves her own big budget biopic, but Hollywood is more interested in superheroes these days. And period pieces are expensive, and honest accounts of American history is upsetting to some folks. So real quick, before I get to my interview with Robert, I want to highlight one act of bravery, activism, and journalism, this giant of journalism, who fought tirelessly to make this country into the more perfect union it's designed to be. According to Alicia R. Norwood, a fellow at the National Women's History Museum, quote, in 1884, Wells Barnett filed a lawsuit against a train car company in Memphis for unfair treatment. She had been thrown off a first-class train despite having a ticket. Although she won the case on the local level, the ruling was eventually overturned in federal court. After the lynching of one of her friends, Wells Barnett turned her attention to white mob violence. She became skeptical about the reasons black men were lynched and set out to investigate several cases. She published her findings in a pamphlet and wrote several columns in local newspapers. Her expose about an 1892 lynching enraged locals who burned her press and drove her from Memphis, end quote. Pamphlets were like the blogs of the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, and they were pretty powerful tools to bring about progress and change. And they certainly served our country well and helped in our fight for independence against Britain. The history buffs out there by now may have noticed that the very title of this show, Common Sense, is a homage to the famous pamphlet written by another writer, philosopher, activist, and founding father, Thomas Paine. Common Sense and the Rights of Man, along with Thomas Jefferson's Declaration of Independence, are foundational documents to American society. In fact, all of the founding fathers were activists, and many of them used the written word as their main tool. Journalism, opinion writing, activism, and forward progress have been and will always be intertwined. Journalism and activism are quite literally as American as apple pie. Now let's get to my interview with Robert and local recovery coach Joseph Hunter, who meets with Robert from time to time to keep in touch with him and get him life-saving Narcan.
All right. So can you tell me real quick what we're about to go doing?
We're going to do the nightly Narcan distribution by hand directly to somebody that is a chronic user, IV drug user, who has overdosed 3 times in the last 6 months. And you know, one of the things that I believe in is harm reduction. And even though a lot of people have given up on this guy, I haven't, and I've built a relationship with him over, I'd say, roughly the last 6 months. He got released from Okanagan County Jail and was released with Narcan. And when he used that Narcan, his recovery coach up there reached out to me and said, hey, he's in Wenatchee, he's a high risk for overdose, can you connect with him? I sent him numerous messages, and he was really reluctant to respond. And I know that feeling all too well. You're really reluctant to getting resources from people that you don't know. And so after a few times of bugging him, he finally started reaching back out and responding. And now, you know, he's a friend of mine. You know, he calls me, he asks me how I'm doing. I ask him how he's doing. You know, I tend to message him every couple nights and just check on him because, you know, chances are somebody like him, we're going to end up burying him. And So I like to keep as much Narcan in my trunk, and when he's messaging me, I meet him wherever it is in town, day or night, you know, just to be that one person that's there for him. And we're gonna go meet him right now. I never know where we're meeting at. He's really reluctant on meeting in the same spot, and so we're gonna go meet him, and he's offered to tell us a little bit about his story and give him some Narcan, give him some fentanyl test strips, and some alcohol swab wipes, or forms of harm reduction that I give him pretty often.
Okay, great.
Let's go. Yeah, so this guy overdosed about, I don't know, a couple months back. It was the second of the 3 overdoses, and ambulance came to his house, took him to the ER, stays a couple days in the ER, they stabilize him and they let him out, and left to his own devices, he always relapses and does what he does. He don't have any tools to find recovery, and is lacking some of the willingness to put in the effort. And so, you know, I believe that if there's breath in his lungs, there's a chance that he can achieve recovery at some point. And so, you know, instead of cycling him in and out of the ER like they have been, one of the things that I plan on doing in the community is utilizing recovery coaches in the emergency department to be there to hold his hand through that overdose and advocate and support and make sure he doesn't feel alone, and hopefully get him to accept some sort of resources.
Sure.
I know when I was in his same shoes in 2011 when I overdosed, you know, I was all alone, and the hospital didn't treat me too well. They treated me like I was wasting resources, and you know, it's a lot better nowadays. But you know, I just think what benefits could we have if we had somebody that has been in that guy's shoes in there, letting him know he's going to be all right and that there's resources, and hopefully to capitalize on that moment and get him into detox or treatment, or drag him to a meeting. But you know, when a nurse or a doctor or somebody that's never been down that road is telling him what he needs to do, he's really reluctant to accept any of the help they offer.
Yeah.
And so I see a really big need in all communities for recovery coaches in the emergency department, in hospitals, for pregnant women who are, you know, afraid to be on pain pills because they're in recovery, and you know, they could have that recovery coach, you know, making sure nurses every 8 hours know that that person's in recovery and respect those boundaries that they have, that they want to do it non-narcotic. Or somebody that, you know, is in there for a blood infection over and over, you know, abscess on their arms, just any substance use disorder related illness in a hospital emergency room setting. A recovery coach could benefit that person, and also benefit the hospital by educating them what it's like to be in their shoes, what it's like to be in that moment right then, and how can the hospital better welcoming that person into the ER and making them feel like they deserve to get the service that they're there for, versus in the past feeling like we're wasting resources. You know, that's a sad reality of it, you know, and I know it from my own experience in my years of active addiction, that's how I felt when I was in the ER. They didn't treat me well, and there's an actual term that was used, and I really hope it ain't used anymore, but it's when someone like myself, who is in full-blown active heroin addiction, would walk into the ER, you would hear the word Gomer, and it was an acronym for get out of my emergency room. And so they were really short with you and pushy, and just, you know, instantly you knew that you weren't very welcomed in that emergency room. And so, you know, I understand why he keeps cycling in those doors and out those doors, because he don't feel like he can get help there. Yeah, he's definitely got some demons, and he is on a suicide mission. You know, anybody that overdoses 3 times in a short period of time, chances are we're going to bury him. Right. Once you overdose once, your risk of overdosing, it multiplies dramatically. I'm not sure what the exact statistic is, but it's really high. What's up, brother? I was like, I don't see him anywhere. How you doing, man?
Hey, Joe.
Good to see you.
My name is Robert W. So I met this guy randomly out of jail. I texted a number they gave me on a Narcan thing saying that I'd used the Narcan and overdosed, and they had him contact me. And I was sketched about it because I didn't know. Then it took a couple months for us to actually for me to open up to him and take Narcan from him and use it like his lives, man. I've OD'd 38 times. And 38 times, the last 3 have been because this guy's giving me Narcan.
Wow. Right on, man.
So.
And what is that? I mean, what's it like I've never OD'd. What's that like? And for people who haven't experienced that, what is it like, and what's it like to take the Narcan and come back from that?
I mean, it's an eye opener. Like, you just got brought back from death. Like, I really don't know how to explain it. You died and got brought back because something that got sprayed in your nose. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like,
It's crazy.
And what about like the potency of, like last time I talked to you, you said you had to use 3 full boxes of Narcan to revive you?
Yeah.
Like that says a lot about the potency of the stuff we're getting now, because when I was in active addiction, 1 box was enough.
Sure.
It'd bring anybody back to life. But the stuff we're dealing with now, the fentanyl, is so strong that 2, 3, sometimes even 4 boxes just to bring them back.
they've had to use 12 things of Narcan on me at the most at one time.
12 of them, yeah.
Wow, that is crazy. And then so after that, you have to go get help from the hospital, right?
Yeah.
It only lasts for a little while.
Yeah, like I've been sent to the hospital after Narcan, and I've been brought back also and denied medical attention. Like, had the ambulance show up and been like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it goes both ways. Like, you wake up in the worst dope sickness you've ever been in times 100.
The minute they revive you, huh?
The minute you come to, I mean, you're just chilled.
Instant dope sickness, instant withdrawal.
And so, like, you still feel the, like, body effects of the heroin or whatever you took, the opiates. And it's weird because you'll still sit there and twitch and you'll see the movements and jerking and everything like that, but you don't get the high from it at all. So it's really scary because now you're sober and you're watching yourself go through all this.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
So, if there was a Narcan vending machine, do you think that that's something that you would use?
Yeah,
That's good.
most definitely. Like, I mean, he told us about the Narcan vending machine before, and I posted it on Facebook about it to everybody and said, hey, look, this is something amazing, you know what I mean? It saves lives.
And think about, like, his Facebook's a channel to people that need that.
Absolutely. So I assume that you're friends with people on Facebook who are also going through maybe some of the things you're going through?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you talking about that might help them.
And see, and that's the thing, like, it doesn't matter who it is, if somebody's in addiction or not in addiction with this, like, everybody should carry this. And my mother worked at a gas station, didn't even use heroin or nothing like that. She carried this stuff in her purse. Thanks to me, ended up saving somebody's life that OD'd in the bathroom. Wow. So.
And was that locally or?
Yeah, that was at the 76 down here.
Wow. Wow. So right there, a ripple effect of you understand it, you talk to your family, they understand the power of Narcan, and she saved a life of somebody in the bathroom. Wow.
Like, she just told me a couple weeks back that, I mean, they have Narcan in the medicine cabinet, and like even my grandfather knows how to use it.
Wow.
So.
I hope so. Not even to laugh, but I hope so for your sake, Robert. After getting to know you and the talks that we've had and the long talks at night, like, you become one of my friends, you know what I mean? And I care about you, and the reality of it is, as often as you're overdosing, the chances are I'm going to be there at your funeral, watching your grandma mourn because, you overdosed one too many times and, like, took that risk a little too far. And, what I want people to know is, like, it's important that for the harm reduction purpose, that if there's breath in this man's lungs, he's worth saving with a box of Narcan. Like, it's not a wasted resource. It's $75. And in my hopes, at one point, he's going to put his hand out and say, Joey, I'm ready to step into recovery. And, the relationship we've built over, right now, 6 months, hopefully down the road, a year, 2 years, and I can take him to his first meeting and take him to detox or treatment and plug him into the same resources I use as a recovery coach.
Is that something you think that, sometime in the near future or even in the distant future that you'll be ready for?
Yeah. I mean, I'm already working towards it somewhat. Like, nobody wants to be in addiction.
No.
Nobody wants to be in a heroin addiction, and you walk into it for different reasons and everything. Like, I walked into it because I got run over by a tractor, ended up taking opiates that way, and then just became addicted to stuff, and heroin was cheaper than pills.
Same as me, yeah.
And that's what 9 times out of 10, I mean, that's what it is. Or other people, started out with weed, that moved to meth, and moved to just tried everything. Next thing you know is they're in the downers and you're doing heroin.
Sure.
But in your case, the doctor gave you your first opiate.
Yeah.
Right, same as me.
And was that like Oxycontin? Yeah.
Yeah.
They gave me 180 Oxy 80s and 3 refills for the summer.
And when was this?
When I was 13.
Opioids are now one of the leading causes of injury-related deaths in Washington state. More people die from overdose than from car crashes. Between 2012 and 2016, more than 3,300 lives in Washington were lost to opioid overdose. We are all part of the solution. Your choices matter. If you are prescribed an opioid pain medication, talk with your doctor about other options, and don't share your prescriptions with other people. It starts with you. Learn more at getthefactsrx.com.
Welcome to Crunch Pack, the #1 supplier of sliced apples and a premier employer in the Wenatchee Valley. We are looking to add new members to our Crunch Pack team. We offer full-time work with great benefits in a safe environment with fantastic people. As a part of the Crunch Pack family, you'll find a home that's all about helping you thrive and succeed. Come see what Crunch Pack can do for you. Apply today at 300 Sunset Highway in Cashmere or online at crunchpack.com.
In a world afraid of technology, one man, one show will bring you the newest innovations that may just change your life. This summer, Ray McNeil, and your Weekly Tech Update is your Weekly Tech Update with Ray McNeil.
I'm here at the Discovery Center at Rocky Reach Dam, where there's a ton of cool stuff to do. You can learn how the dam harnesses the power of the Columbia, walk inside a Native American Tule Lodge, and steer clear of disaster on the Rock Island Rapids. You can check out the new fish viewing space and even stare a salmon right in the eye. Explore all this and more at Chelan County PUD's brand new Discovery Center at Rocky Reach Dam, now open year-round.
Sure glad we went to Les Schwab.
I'm glad the baby's still happy.
Well, I'm just glad that along with tires, Les Schwab also does brakes, alignment, and a bunch of other safety services. I mean, if we had gone to a cheap tire store instead, I'd be a doggone wreck.
My thoughts exactly.
Swing by today and get road trip ready with our always free pre-trip safety check. Les Schwab Tires, doing the right thing since 1952.
Hello, this is Tom Neese with Serve Wenatchee Valley, and you're watching the NCWLIFE channel.
Welcome back. Let's get right back to my interview with Robert, who is an intravenous drug user, and Joseph Hunter, a recovery coach who is working to get Robert off drugs and off the streets.
But in your case, the doctor gave you your first opiate.
Yeah.
Right, same as me.
Yeah.
And was that like
Yeah.
Yeah.
They gave me 180 Oxy 80s and 3 refills for the summer.
And when was this?
When I was 13.
Well, how many years ago was that?
I mean, I'm 28 now, so
15 years ago? That's about when that was at the peak of the over-prescribing and, doctors giving it out like candy. That was the peak of that, and that's when we lost a lot of people to heroin addiction because they put people on high doses of Oxycontin, like 80s. That's enough to kill a horse, like 100 of them, 180 of them a month. And then you cut him off because for one reason or another, what's he gonna do? You're gonna do what I did, what every other person did, and we turned to the streets, and the streets led us to heroin, and then here we are, giving Narcan to them, you know what I mean?
Right. Wow. And where was that accident with the tractor? It was here locally in the Wenatchee Valley. Yeah. So are you a local, born and raised in Wenatchee? Yeah. Yeah, I have a similar experience. I broke my femur in a skiing accident, got oxys for that, and found it quite hard to get off of them. Yeah. It was very hard, and it was a little bit scary, like how much I wanted to keep taking those pills, you know. Wow, so what is, you know, what, from your experience, what's something that you want the community to know, like maybe the community who doesn't even know your story or Joey's story, or have never even thought about Narcan or any of these drugs? What do you want these normies to know, I guess, these normal people who just don't get it? What do you want them to know?
I mean, it's around you every day. Like people you don't think use opiates or even meth or heroin, whatever it is. People you work next to every day, go to school with, whatever it is. It's an addiction. I mean, somebody you know has it. Yeah. I guarantee it 100%. Somebody you know has it, and you don't know about it. Yeah. And this is lives. Yeah. Honest to God, like I said, the last 3 times I've overdosed are thanks to this man here giving me Narcan, yeah. Not knowing that he even was going to. I mean, it was going to get used for that, or what it was going to get used for. It's what it happened. It saved my life.
Yeah, and normally, like communities like ours, we'll buy Narcan. Train organizations, they put it on their shelf, it expires, and at what point is that doing our community any good? How do we get it into the hands of the people that need it? Is by doing this type of stuff, you know, hand distributing it, building relationships with people that, you know, not looking past the problem, looking past, you know, their situation, and being that kind-hearted person that's willing to just step out of their comfort zone and step into something to help somebody. You know, and since then, Robert's connected me to a couple people that I've distributed Narcan to that the same thing, took a minute to build the relationship, and now they have Narcan in their backpacks, or their friends have it, or like Robert said, his mom had it at work and it saved somebody's life. You know, this is super important to break the stigma on this. There's a really bad stigma towards, you know, a lot of communities look at this as a wasted resource, you know, that, oh, you're just helping a junkie out so he can have do another shot of drugs tomorrow. And the reality of it is I was that junkie. And today, because of Narcan, I get to sit here and have the role in my community that I have. And not only that, the most important thing is connect to people like him that are real people. His grandma loves him to death and wants him to succeed and wants him to achieve all the goals and dreams in life, but he's bound by the disease, just like I was, just like a lot of our community members are. And we can be proactive by distributing Narcan and making it accessible to anybody and everybody, not putting a price on it, not putting stipulations on it, not forcing them to ask questions or answer questions, but a barrier-free, unfettered access Narcan vending machine, and that's our plan.
Since 1999, nearly 841,000 Americans have died from drug overdoses. Many of those addictions got started with opioid pain medications prescribed to them by their doctor. As you heard from Robert, who is a local born and raised right here in the Wenatchee Valley, that's how his addiction got started years ago when he was just 14. 180 milligram pills is a lot for anyone, let alone a young teen. But there's a reason why medical providers were over-prescribing these medications, and surprise, surprise, it's about money. For the better part of 2 decades now, medical providers have been pushed and hounded by salespeople and other representatives of pharmaceutical companies like Purdue Pharma. According to an article in Nature.com published in 2019, quote, Purdue Pharma and other companies promoted their opioid products heavily. They lobbied lawmakers, sponsored continuing medical education courses, funded professional and patient organizations, and sent representatives to visit individual doctors. During all of these activities, they emphasized the safety, efficacy, and low potential for addiction of prescription opioids. In fact, opioids are not particularly effective for treating chronic pain. With long-term use, people can develop tolerance to the drugs and even become more sensitive to pain. And the claim that OxyContin was less addictive than other opioid painkillers was untrue. Purdue Pharma knew that it was addictive, as it admitted in a 2007 lawsuit that resulted in a $635 million fine for the company. But doctors and patients were unaware of that at the time, end quote. 2007 was the year I shattered my femur in a skiing accident and was myself given opioid pain medications, including OxyContin, to manage that pain, which I can tell you was considerable. In my experience, those pills did help manage my pain, but I do remember that they were not easy to get off of, and that scared me more than a little, especially as I watched people in my peer group succumb to addictions that started with prescription pain meds. When I was at WSU, most of the cautionary public health signage on buses and around campus had to do with opioid pills and addiction. The opioid epidemic has affected Americans of all ages, from all walks of life, but one of the hardest hit generations has been my own. Robert is just one local example of that. So where do we go from here? Well, I have a few ideas, but I will quote Dr. Ronald Hirsch, MD, in the Journal of the Missouri State Medical Association in an article he wrote titled "The Opioid Epidemic, It's Time to Place Blame Where It Belongs." In it, he writes, quote, "Blame must be placed. It is the American way. The co-conspirators noted here have created the current crisis and should be required to enter into an opioid master settlement agreement to pay for treatment and prevention efforts for all those affected by their nefarious activities," end quote. We cannot fix this problem if we insist on blaming addicts and ignore the root causes of how we got to a nearly 1 million Americans dead from overdose over 2 decades. And who really bears the responsibility to foot the bill when folks like Robert need emergency medical care? It's not Purdue Pharma. It's us, our society, and our community right here. Common sense harm reduction tools like Narcan save lives. Stigmatizing those in active addiction is a part of the problem and a factor in how we got to where we are now. It's time to admit that the war on drugs was a failure. Just Say No was an absurd joke, and ignoring the problem and stigmatizing addicts is pointless and ineffective, even if it does make small people feel superior in some petty way. I'd like to thank Robert for having the bravery to sit down with Joey and me for this interview, because I can give folks all the facts and data in the world, but it's real-life individual stories like his that actually make people think and reconsider their assumptions. That's all for Common Sense for today. I'm Dominick Bonny. Join me next time.
Don't make plans to store your boat for the off-season until you've checked out the Super Package from Bob File Boats and Motors. With this package, you just drop your boat off for winterizing, and they take it from there. When you pick it up in the spring, it'll be ready to go for the next season. There are too many features in the Super Package to list here, so get the details. 509-884-3558.
Bob File Boats and Motors, we're dealing. Bob File's gonna make you smile.
911, what is the address of your emergency?
Yes, it's me. It's my husband. I think there's something the matter with him.
It was a feeling that I'll never forget, like being able to meet them and know that he survived.
Okay, tell me what's happening. Is he conscious?
No, he's not. He's not.
Okay, take a deep breath for me. I'm getting you help.
Rivercom means to me that I still have my husband here with me. They're the ones that guided me through saving his life.
You know, I have different people in the community come up and tell me that they've seen our commercial. I took my family up to Yodelin, up in Leavenworth, and we walk in, and it's a Monday night, so Monday Night Football is playing, and all of a sudden, our commercial starts airing. And my kids couldn't believe it. They're like, "Dad, you are on Monday Night Football. This is unbelievable. You know, we know somebody famous." Like, my respect level just went way up in my kids' eyes.
We have, over the last year, realized how important Apple Blossom is, how important those Friday football games are, and being a part of that community and being able to support those activities happening is very important to us.
One of our real passions as a business is to serve our community well, and at the same time promote our brand. And I feel like NCWLIFE allows you to do that with some of the different opportunities that they give you.
Need a break from reality? Central Washington Water has a showroom full of possibilities, with service and support to keep you soaking and giving you the absolute best ownership experience. Free flow plug-and-go spas for as little as $45 a month. There's a hot tub for everyone at Central Washington Water. Shop screen to screen, in-store, or a backyard consultation with one of our wellness team members. Central Washington Water, your water experts.